Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Yeah, we've got a strange one today, but there's a good story behind this that is all in support of charity. But full disclosure, this is not a charity video. The guitar is not for sale for charity this time. But let's go ahead and dive into the history of this ribbon guitar. The brand is called Pink Firefly. It has absolutely nothing to do with the guitars that you can buy on eBay and Amazon that are branded Firefly. This actually comes from the guy who designed these things. His name is Kory Van Sickle from the band Kory and the Fireflies. So that's how you get the Firefly name. But Kory started doing this about 7 years ago, where he would take kind of an exotic cymbal type guitar and auction them off for charity. He first started with guitars that looked like this, the ampersand symbol. And he got people like Slash to sign the guitars so he could auction them off for charity in order to raise money for music lessons for underprivileged children. And after doing a short interview with him, he said it was at that point where he realized, funky shaped guitars and signatures from the stars are a really great way to raise money for charity. So he saw this opportunity and started partnering with more places. So these are what he calls his patented ribbon-styled guitars. And he's done these types for many different organizations to support cancer research. So you might find a yellow one that's about kids' cancer or for veteran services. There was an orange one done for the San Francisco Giants, a red one for Bono's Red campaign, a blue one for the Kansas City Royals, but the one we're talking about today is the pink one, the one for Sanford breast cancer research. Sanford is a women's health center in South Dakota, and the owner of that, Danny Sanford, lost his mother to breast cancer. So that's why this was a really close topic to home for him, and it was just great for him to be able to organize an auction night where people came together and they bid on many of these guitars that were signed by the stars. Now, we're not just talking like the usual suspects that sign guitars and stuff. There was something for everybody at this auction, from country music stars to metal musicians, classic rock to modern pop. Just to name a few, we're talking like Ed Sheeran, 21 Pilots, you got Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, U2, Foo Fighters, Avenged Sevenfold, Bob Seger, Kiss, Robert Plant, even Dolly Parton signed these things. So all the big stars, if you say, hey, do you guys remember those ribbon guitars? Yeah, they'll probably say, how could you forget them, right? It's just kind of a very bizarre out there guitar. It's got this like X-styled headstock with the ribbon-styled body. It's just kind of, interesting to say the least, right? You don't see one of these in a music store every day. But just on this charitable auction night, they raised $320,000 to support the cause, and all of it went to the charity. There were no administration costs. So I think now we need to answer the big question. Who signed this one? What famous rock star do we have? Well, unfortunately, this was not one of the ones that was auctioned off. This was an example that was given to somebody who helped out at the event, and it was signed by basically the board of directors for the event, as well as Kory himself. Take a look at Kory's signature right there, and then you can see it once again right here. And then down here you have Dave Knudson, which appears to be the attorney for the place, as well as Miles Beacom, who is part of the board of directors of Sanford. And then you have Chris's signature right here. So while this one was never auctioned off for crazy money, the other ones typically bring in between $7,000 to $30,000, which is kind of impressive to say the least. So it's a charity guitar. Is it supposed to be a super high-end instrument? No, but let's go ahead and do an in-depth review and documentation of it anyways and throw it on the workbench. Alright, inside the pink ribbon guitar. Just a little bit of backstory. No, it was not the person who got this guitar for free that sent it to me. It was from the person who purchased it from them for his daughter. She just loved this pink guitar, but unfortunately she never learned the guitar, and it just kind of was sitting around, and his family needed the money, so he sent it in to me for this full review and documentation, and to help him find a buyer, because this is, a very niche market guitar, but it's kind of cool how so many stars have signed these things. So first off, these are made in China, somewhere overseas. It's not the highest quality guitar in the world, but, honestly, it's a little bit better than I was expecting. So right here you have this metal plate that is secured to the pickup ring, but I was surprised to find that the pickup also has a silver lettering on top of it. It's almost kind of like an EMG styled pickup where it's just completely sealed off at the back. I mean, it's definitely not a high quality pickup. I'm not expecting too much out of this thing. As far as pickup readings go, I get about 13.28 k ohms. Inside you can see the cavity routes here. Nothing too crazy. I would guess this is some sort of cheap like basswood or something like that. And you've got those wiring channels right there. But this pickup just has an individual volume and tone control, no fancy electronics or anything, so just one tone out of these guys. You gotta play around with these to get something different. And it's a string through design here with one of those cheap Strat style bridges. The body does not have any binding at all, and the paint's kind of cool, you know, it's a nice bright pink color, but there are some areas where if you look at it in the light just right, you can see the wood grain underneath it, so that's a small QC type thing that they probably could have done a little bit better. But other than that, and a few impressions within the wood, you know, brand new from the factory, they're not too bad. Especially since it's a charity guitar, they're not necessarily looking to spend a ton of money on these because they want to give more back to the charity, right? You've got truss rod access down here. I cannot see the neck wood. It's probably some type of mahogany, and the fretboard looks like some sort of rosewood, very similar to what comes on a glary guitar, but I would not say that this thing feels like a glary. It feels more like a mid-tier Dean or a low-end Ibanez, but it's a 22 fret neck, with neck specs of 1.65 inches at the nut. That increases to 2.02 at the 12th. First fret neck depth, 0.88. That stays fairly consistent, 0.91 by the 12th. It has a rather rounded neck profile shape to it, so you don't notice it being like super slim or anything, kind of a nice medium neck. And it looks like they're going after the 25.5 inch scale length. Moving on to the headstock, this is where things get a little bit weird. With this funky headstock, they've actually swapped up what tuner is what. So normally it's EAD, GBE, but now it goes from 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4, 5, 6, something like that. It's really confusing tuning this thing up. But then you have the string tree right here to kind of get them to where they're supposed to go, so they kind of slide in the nut at a slightly better string pull angle. And here you can see the pink Firefly branding as well as the signature of the guy who designed these. Moving on to the backside here, the first thing I noticed is whoever drilled the ferrules for the strings to go through, a little bit sloppy work there. They're kind of all zoop-a-doop-a-doopy, but hey, it's okay. I don't think that really affects anything. And within the control cavities, that's exactly what I thought we were going to see, just those tiny little pots. They work. Are they fantastic? No, but they do the job. You can see right there where the screw kind of just destroyed the wood, so it's not really even holding itself in place because of that. You just kind of got the one right there to do that job. But I am impressed to see that they took the time to mount the jack on the side, because it probably would have been cheaper for them just to put one like here on the front or something. But they took the time to do that. And something else that is kind of confusing, you've got one really nice strap button right there. And then there's another one right here at the base of the heel. But then you peek around the corner, there's another one right here. So it's just kind of your preference. Do you want it at the back of the heel, or do you want it in like a normal position? I guess it just depends on how you're playing, standing up, sitting down, and which way does it balance better. Another fun thing is you can actually strum the guitar from behind. Could be some fun stage tricks. And then the back of the neck here, once again, it's a nice little rounded neck profile. It's a full gloss finish everywhere on this guitar. And you actually have a little bit of a volute right here, but the headstock itself does not necessarily bend backwards. It just kind of goes back a bit and then forward. And the serial number is FFPF0094. And the tuners on this thing, they're not too bad. I was actually impressed with these things. They felt nice. Just for fun, in case you're curious how big this guitar is, the body is about 17 inches long at the longest points. And as far as the width goes, you're at about 9, so that's Les Paul territory. And is it 13? It's about 12.5, so a little bit smaller feeling than a Les Paul. And it weighs 6 pounds, 4.7 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. Now that we know all about the ribbon guitar by Pink Firefly, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Would I ultimately recommend it? No, not really. It's kind of just a novelty guitar. The pickup is crazily microphonic, but I think it's because you have this big metal plate sitting over top of it. I would definitely suggest removing that if you were planning to gig this guitar, and if nothing else, actually replacing the pickup, because it just kind of sounded dull and lifeless to me in general. The body shape said, yes, play me, but the pickup was saying there's nothing to be played in here. And on top of that, the output jack was absolute garbage. It would cut in and out. It only worked like half the time. Kind of annoying to deal with, but that's kind of what I've come to expect on guitars like Glaries and things like that, so I'm not necessarily surprised. The volume controls work well, the tone controls work well, so you got that going for you. So besides needing a better output jack and a better pickup, what was good about this? The whole guitar, it actually feels comfortable to play, and it's well balanced. Now, it's not balanced at all if you use this strap button. It neck dives like crazy. But since they do have this additional option of one back here in the heel joint, it's perfectly balanced there. There's no neck dive at all. And it just kind of has a cool vibe to it. It's a hot pink color. You get the ribbon here, and then you get a cool X headstock. I mean, what's not to like there? And honestly, it stayed in tune a lot better than I thought it was going to with this type of a headstock design, and you kind of get used to the tuning system here. It's a little less than typical, but hey, it works. This one definitely needs a professional setup to be dialed in a little bit better, but as far as a giggable instrument, I think as a unit, yes, it's great. You just need to make a few modifications in order to make it sound like a regular guitar. But something else that kind of impressed me about this guitar, maybe you missed it on the bench, but it actually does have black binding along the sides. So were these $7,000 to $30,000 guitars and the way that they play and feel? No, they're only worth that much at a charity auction. Charity auctions is where rich people go to get the biggest tax deductions and to help people out. So on the used market, what is one of these things worth? I mean, people ask a couple of grand all the time. Realistically, I think 500's about top dollar for this one. And it's not like you're gonna see a lot of these on the used market anyways, because they're mainly just trophy pieces for somebody who wanted to donate to charity, as well as get a guitar signed by one of the artists that they like. So Kory from Firefly Guitars is doing a great justice to the world in taking guitars and using them to raise money for cancer. Besides some of the paint flaws from where you can see some indentations and light nicks and dings, it's actually in pretty good shape. I did not notice anywhere where it was dinged up against anything or chips off of the finish. And I just oiled the fretboard and I cleaned up the frets, so you're good to go there. I added a little bit of graphite to the nut, so maybe that helped in the keeping it in tune and everything. And as far as the face of the guitar, it's just kind of what I was talking about earlier, how you get it in the light, you can see all those impressions underneath the wood, as well as the wood grain showing through. And if you want to get rid of these signatures, I'm fairly confident you could. I mean, they've only been on there probably for a little under a year, so I don't even think you would have any type of shadowing going on. Or you could just hang this thing up on your wall and tell people it's somebody more famous that signed it. In order to remove this metal plate, all you have to do is take the screws out and then take that off and then put the screws back in. You'll still have the Sanford branding underneath there, but at least then I don't think you'll have the microphonicness. This was a squealer. Backside of the headstock, similar story to the rest of it. I did not notice any major nicks or dings. It hasn't been used much. Heck, I've probably been the one to play it the most. It's just kind of an interesting body shape here. And you still have the plastic sitting over top of this control cavity right there. So you could take that off, but I would just leave it. And looking around the edges here, I didn't see anything too crazy either. So, I mean, it's definitely got some good bones here to work with, but you definitely need to make some upgrades to it. I wasn't expecting this. We've got a glowing ribbon here. This kind of helps show some of the finish inconsistencies from the factory, mainly around here. I couldn't actually feel this before, but now that I see it and feel it with my nail, it's like slightly less glossy in this area. So I'm betting that came from the factory that way. But everything, you know, as far as wear and tear goes, you're looking good here. I think if you're going to buy this guitar, you're just using it for display purposes, or if you're going on tour, or you have like a charity gig coming up. I mean, who wouldn't want to see this at a cancer gig or something? And going up the neck here, it's kind of cool that the binding glows a different color, so you can actually see how these guys did the binding here. They kind of capped it off at the top right there. And here's the face of the headstock. Everything's looking good here. So just kind of a interesting glowing ribbon. Surprisingly, this does come with a custom hardshell case. It looks like on this tag it says like Riot, R-I-A-T, something like that. Then we have a 092. These are usually on like auction type guitars, but this one was never actually officially part of the auction. It's kind of like a fake leather-like exterior here. It's definitely got some scratches and scuffs and wear and tear, but you have 3 latches on the front and a functioning handle. And on the inside, it is custom molded to this guitar, so it's not really going to fit much else, but it's a nice little added bonus here. And inside this little compartment, you do have case keys should you wish to use them. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this pink Firefly, you can check out that link in the description, which will take you to the Reverb for sale page. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.